So water has a property, and one of the properties it has specifically is a property which builds a relationship. So if I push on it, right, and especially if I have like kind of a nice tight surface, then once I push on it, it will tend to push back. So I'm pushing this way, and the water's pushing back that way, and we're getting what's called an increase in pressure. And that pressure is what's called a field of pressure, which you can see forming here. And you can call it a field of pressure, or we call it a pressure field. And so what he's doing is he's on the bottom with his hand on the bottom of the pressure field pushing up. So the top would be located kind of up here. The bottom would be underneath, right? That's a little bit too far there, kind of underneath like this. And then you have kind of the front, which is where you're going to, the back where you're coming from, right? And you have your right side and your left side, depending on how you describe that. And so these are the different barriers, right, you have with the pressure field. And he's on the border in this case, the bottom border pushing in an upward direction. Okay, so you can see that building there. And again, one more time is if I push on it, it tends to push back, right there. Hopefully that helps you understand that a little bit. Now, to learn this concept, the first thing you want to do is have your swimmer close their eyes. That way they can cut off all the different senses except for proprioception, or what we call feeling or touch, right? And so you want to, you can't smell it, you can't hear it, you can't taste it. Now you can't see it because you close your eyes, and now you're just feeling for it. And so what you do is you have them put their palm facing upward, right? And hold it nice and tight so you get a nice solid surface on your hand. And that presses up, causes that pressure field, and they should feel the weight of that, right? So they should feel the pressure on their hand. Then the next step is you have them take their hand back down, turn it into, so the palm is in the vertical plane, and then that slices through the water, as you can see here. That way you'll have a decrease in pressure on the hand. Then let's go side to side. We do the same thing again, cause that nice, tight, right, what we call a heavy spot on the hand, where the knuckles of the hand are kind of pressing forward, and keep it really tight, and then you'll build a pressure field going sideways like this. And then have the hand, take the hand back again, turn it into the horizontal plane, so the palm's in the horizontal plane, and again you can slice across. And they'll get the concept usually of how to build a pressure field, and so you can get a response, so you start to really understand how to build that relationship. And once you have that concept, you start to understand a little bit more about how to swim the freestyle in regards to building the pressure fields, right? And how to utilize them. And it's not just freestyle, and it's not just your arms, right? Pressure fields are, you have supportive pressure fields, you have, right? And this is going to be a propulsive pressure field that he's making here. The supportive one is riding under his body, called the bed. And you see how he's pushing not just forward, but forward and down. You can see that hand position applying pressure to the water. And he's maintaining that pressure, which is really important. You don't want to lift up here, because if the hand, for some reason, lifts upward, right, and comes off of there, if this makes sense, you'll allow the pressure to release. So you always want to be applying downward pressure, right, towards that pressure field, but not so far down that you push it down. You're trying to create a relationship. Here he's getting more on the what's called the top front of the pressure field. And that's where you're getting that pressure right there. You notice how his forearm is turning over here to gain a relationship with the front of the pressure field. And this is a very important aspect. Now, once he's created that pressure field and he's got the relationship that he's looking for, right? So back here again, creating the pressure field is here. And now manipulating to the front of the pressure field so that you can now get a relationship, the type of relationship you're looking for is totally key to what you're about to do. Now you're going to start to, once you have that relationship and it's solid, you're going to start to press back. And when you do, the pressure field that you've built will now push more water, which will then push back, and you'll get a second layer of pressure fields, which we call the secondary pressure field. And you get a tertiary, and finally a quad here. You can see the quad building. Okay, once you have those four, and so this is where you're pushing, just so you know, on the pressure field. So you're pushing on, you're pressurizing it to cause more pressure and to get more support for your purpose or your cause here, right? And once you've done that, then we're going to move back into this area here where we're now using that quad and all that pressure to push off of. So before we're pushing on the pressure field to cause a stacking process, and now we're pushing off the stack and driving ourselves. See that blue arrow, right? That light blue arrow driving our body. That's the movement arrow, driving that body forward. So when we look at the arm cycle, right, I'm going to stay focused on this arm, and this is the left arm of the swimmer. That's the one that's in the air right now. That's called A0. A for arms, H would be head, T for torso, or L for legs. A for arms, this is A0. And then the hand goes in the water during the recovery. So A0 is the out of water recovery. A1 is the below surface recovery. So actually, A0 is above surface recovery, sorry. And now this is the below surface recovery, which is A1. We're creating the pressure field. In A2, right, you're gathering. And what you're trying to do is get on the front of the pressure field, change that relationship. So you can now push backward and therefore, right, with propulsion and move your body forward because it's an opposing force. Okay, now we're going to A3. A3, you are now pulling or pushing on the water. We call it the pull, right? Or we call it, in this case, right, when we're going through here, that's called the press. So we indicate it's the press, but it's a pulling action. Pulling is where you're bending a joint to cause force. And then pushing to us, right here, is when you're, right, uncoiling or, right, straightening a joint. So over here you are coiling, which is bending a joint to cause pressure in A3, called the press, and then into the thrust right here, where you are now pushing off the pressure field. You're not trying to push the pressure field backward like this, right? Let's use a red arrow because that's wrong, right? You don't want to do that. And we'll use a green arrow to say it's right, is what you want to do is you want to press on the pressure field, or push off the pressure field and drive yourself forward from it. And that's a very different intent in the mind and a different understanding. So this is A4, where you get the most propulsion, pushing yourself the farthest down the pool.